Welcome to the maiden of my Flightline 1200mm Spitfire. But more importantly, this is also a follow-up to my Soloshot RC Plane test. Now, if you've seen my previous video with the RC Plane test, I noted some challenges the Soloshot had in tracking and focus. And the cool thing is, Soloshot actually reached out to me after seeing that video and asked me to assist in some beta testing for some updates they've done on tracking for flight. Now, this is after the updates have come out, which at this time should be available to the public. And there is a significant improvement here. While I'm trimming up the plane, I'll talk more about Soloshot here. Right off the bat, you see the tracking is much improved. It follows much quicker, it reacts quicker. There is definitely more speed on the tilt axis. There are still challenges though. It's not perfect, and Soloshot knows it's not perfect. The focus is something that they are going to be working on in a next iteration of software updates. And then there's still some occasional moments you'll see where the airplane actually outdoes the tracking. Now, the initial part of this flight, as it's a maiden flight, I've been flying relatively smoothly, trimming it up, and fortunately for this particular plane, the trim was very, very minimal that I had to do. Motion RC and Flightline have done a great job with the Spitfire. Flies really, really well. But once I started getting a bit more aggressive with the plane and shaking it out a little bit, you'll see, as of right here is a good example, the Soloshot sometimes can't keep up. And I see this specifically when I go to do like a hammerhead move, which is when you pull straight up and you kill all your power and fall back down out of the sky. That seems to confuse Soloshot a little bit. Also as well, you'll see a bit later on, I'll get into some real steep power turns towards the end of the field. And Soloshot struggles to keep up with the abrupt G-forces going side to side as I make these very tight circles low to the ground. That being said though, this is a vast improvement over the previous test that I had done. And Soloshot does recommend when you first take off, make a couple of nice passes at a good high altitude, keep your speed slow, keep your movements relatively minimal, to give the tracking program just a little bit of extra time to lock in. I did do a second flight, which I'm not going to show you, and on that second flight, since it was I'd already maidened it, I already trimmed out the plane and everything, I just decided to start going crazy the minute I took off. So it definitely showed a difference in the videos by not doing a couple of nice slow passes to help the tracking really lock in. Because the things you're seeing here where occasionally Soloshot is losing me were much, much more frequent in the second video, especially the low passes. Oftentimes Soloshot would be pointing down into the ground. And I think that's just because, like I said, I didn't properly set up the tracking. So if you sort of translate it, if you're doing a surfing video, you walk in front of the camera a few times to lock the tracking. If you're going to be doing flying or some sort of high-speed device like a plane or a car, it's a good recommendation to do the same sort of thing with that vehicle. Do a couple of slow passes and make sure that everything locks in. One thing I'm particularly happy with here, like I said, is it's much better at keeping track of the plane when it gets low. Previous video and the test that I did, oftentimes the camera would dive into the ground and the angle would be so low that it would lose a lot of those really cool low passes. In particular, I just like to fly very close to the ground and very close to objects. It's more fun for me. Definitely more risky, but that's how I get my kicks flying around. So I'll go back to the plane for a minute here. This is a 4S 1200mm Spitfire warbird, and it does carry some mass, but in comparison to my previous video, this is a bit smaller than my bigger Mustang, and it does have a little bit more agility. It can turn faster, it can do these snap rolls, which does throw Soloshot off a little bit. It's a very crazy maneuver. You use your aileron and your elevator and your rudder all at the same time to really throw the plane over in a crazy corkscrew move. But you can see here the tracking's really nice when you get down low. And even as I came in closer to the camera, I did a few buzzes of the tower, if you will. And I did notice that speed up in the pan and especially the tilt. Now here's a maneuver where I cut my throttle to fall out of the sky, and that abrupt change in direction and speed is still a little bit of a challenge. I don't know if it's the fact that the accelerometer within the tag may get confused with the G-forces basically going to 0 and then all of a sudden picking back up again. That's something for the guys at Soloshot to check out. So look for more updates from Soloshot. I do know they are working on a lot of these or some of these issues that I've mentioned earlier. I really like this plane too. Motion RC done a great job with these Flightline planes. It looks great, lands well, flies well. Thank you, and please subscribe for future videos.